All right. Let me double check this. All right, guys. Good morning, good evening, and no, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Christina and another episode of the Truth Runners. I'm so happy to be here with you today because I have a very special guest and very dear to my heart. I would love to introduce you, Ivory. Welcome you to my show.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for having me.
Before we go on, today we are going to talk about the vegans. This is really new for me, but before we go that, I would love to introduce you for you guys, so you know who is our expert today. So Sue, she will turn 50 this year. I would never say though. And for the past 32 years, she has been living and traveling overseas with 8 substantive overseas posts as a diplomatic wife. That's a lot of traveling though. She is a mom of 2 lovely grown-ups who were raised as CCKs. I don't know, what does it mean?
It's third culture kids. So it's a term for children that are raised out of their culture and moving around, so they get an experience of all different cultures around the world.
I would love that.
So, well, it's like your daughter really is also being raised now in London as a third culture kid, you know?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, her career, sorry. So her career has to date been versatile and varied, stepping into opportunities in different parts of the world, being in numerous leadership roles in the church. She is a qualified early years teacher and Montessorian, a reflexologist, a CELTA, yeah, did I say it right?
Yeah.
A CELTA English teacher, and a Ruxbe chef. Did I say it right?
Mm-hmm. Ruby chef.
Ruby. Okay, you have to tell me what is this. Sue have also been a trainer, inspector, shop worker, a post delivery person, a tourist, a stylist. She ran restaurants and had hotels open. A community liaison officer, runs Girl Scout troops, and she volunteers wherever she lives in the world. Oh my goodness, that's a lot. How many lifetimes you put in one? She also has initiated and run many community clubs and projects around the world, and presently she runs Vegans of Albania. She encourages others to be free, to be confident in their unique skills, gifts, and abilities. She is this is a difficult word, environmentalist.
Uh-huh.
I got it right, guys.
Well done.
An empath and has wisdom and insight to the bigger picture, and I really love that though. She loves her 2 dogs, continuing her experiments into gardening to grow her own food, exploring new cultures, reading, cooking and creating or veganizing recipes, crafts, and exploring new techniques and projects. A lifetime of navigating digestive health issues and then an emergency surgery during an earthquake weekend in Albania got her on this pathway to become a vegan. Oh, wow. Many English mistakes from my side, but a beautiful life journey from your side, though. I'm so happy and so grateful to you for accepting this invitation to join me because, as I said, I'm really new and I just basically clueless about everything what vegans means. I know basically what you are eating, so what's your diet, but why? Why you choose to be a vegan?
Well, there's many reasons why somebody may choose to become a vegan. It could be because of their concerns for the environment. And all of us now are very concerned about the problems of pollution and the environmental impact. Some because of animal welfare, and some for health reasons. Some because of poverty, some maybe the other extreme because of wealth and they can afford to make choices. So there's a whole, as with any decision, there's a whole array from, you know, the west to the east of why, but those are some of the the main reasons why somebody may choose to follow a vegan or a whole food plant-based lifestyle.
Okay, what's the difference? Okay, I know basically what's the difference between the vegetarian and the vegan. Let's just make this one clear.
Okay, so the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan is that a vegetarian won't want to kill an animal, but they're usually happy to eat products that are produced from an animal. So the eggs from chickens or ducks or geese, dairy products, milk, yogurt, cheese. There's also pescatarians. Pescatarians will eat fish, but they won't eat land animals or flying animals, birds. The whole food plant-based is different again, in that whole food plant-based, and usually it's also no salt, no oil, no sugar. So whole food plant-based is following.
What do you eat?
I can share. The whole food plant-based is very much more eating foods in their whole natural state, be they raw or cooked or sprouted and prepared, but minimal processing. So it's not eating processed foods which have things hiding in them that we don't know what they are. We're trying to eat as close to the whole natural product, and also seasonally, and also trying to eat what's in your immediate environment, although that's not always possible on everything these days. So really the lifestyle and menu choices I'm following are whole food plant-based, and sometimes that's written down as it's just written as whole food plant-based as the abbreviation. So sometimes people see that written down, the WFPB, and people wonder what that is. Exactly. But it's just a brief. But the reason why usually I introduce myself, especially if I'm in a restaurant or a cafe or somewhere, as vegan, is because a lot of people would not understand whole food plant-based. Most places, especially in the developed world, understand vegetarian, vegan, pescatarian, and carnivorous. So if you start, it depends where you are. You have to sometimes just gradually come into that. And I've been in places in the world as well where you could say that you're vegetarian or vegan, and then they would say, "Okay, I make you chicken." Because in their mind, a chicken is vegetarian itself, exactly. So therefore you can eat chicken. So there's a lot of different misconceptions, and sometimes it can be amusing and fun as well, as you explain what you can eat and what you can't eat in different cultures.
Okay, so let me see if I get this right. Okay, so basically you take the carrot. Okay, I'm just a simple example. Okay, okay, you take the carrot, you wash it, and eat it as it is. No, nothing.
Well, I will make recipes and dishes.
Okay.
And I'll make, starters, snacks, soups, main courses, desserts, cakes, but they're made with all whole food plant-based ingredients. So for example, if I wanted to make a carrot soup, it's going to have some fresh carrots in there, maybe some fresh ginger. It may have a fresh orange squeezed in there. It might have some fresh shallots in there. And then I will also have some vegetable stock, usually that I've made homemade from all my peelings and choppings and scraps get made into stock. So I know exactly what's in that soup. There's nothing that preservatives or additives or thickeners or anything. So it's minimal processing, and it's made from scratch and homemade. Or I might make carrot cake. I might make a cake with some carrots, and then instead of using traditional carrot cake, most people would put butter, eggs, sugar, flour, the carrots, maybe some vanilla, some raisins, all of that. And that's how I used to bake for many years. But now I would make the carrot cake, and I would use some coconut oil. I would use the carrots. I might use some applesauce, homemade applesauce, or some flaxseed instead of the egg. And then I would choose to use a whole meal flour. So it's just and I'd probably use a cane sugar or a coconut sugar rather than a white refined sugar. So we will still have treats once in a while, but we're trying to increase the nutritional value.
Yes, and once in a while, and it sounds so challenging for me just listening to you. How you prepare?
Well, I've
And
had to
then,
learn. I've had to learn new techniques.
How did you decide to do this change? I mean, were you aware of what's gonna happen? Oh my God, I'm gonna change my whole lifestyle because of it. Or
I've always been interested in cooking right from when I was a young child. I used to cook all the meals for the family, and growing up, I was interested in food and nutrition and recipes. And then one of our early postings overseas was in India. And at that time, in 1993, when we went to India, you couldn't actually buy in India processed foods or biscuits or cereals already made and packaged. Everything was cooking from scratch. So if I wanted to feed myself and my husband and my children, I had no choice but to cook from scratch. So I learned a lot of techniques then. And I've always been an advocate, for making sure we were eating a lot of fresh seasonal vegetables, fruits, hopefully organic or be bio, and choosing things that were in season. Partly because that also reduces the price and it reduces our environmental footprint and the impact we're having on the planet. So, if we're buying fruits and vegetables seasonally and locally, then we're going to get much more nutritional value from them, because from the time they come from the field to our fork, they've traveled less and they haven't been put in any synthetic environments or had any strange things done to them or coated or to preserve them. So that's something we can all be doing wherever we are, whatever method of menu that we're choosing to create for ourselves, we can think to eat seasonally and locally.
Okay, as you were talking, I just take some notes and I have 1,000 other questions. You said India. Now my question, so my mind went to Ayurveda first. Is there any difference, or is there a huge difference between Ayurvedic eating and veganism?
I do understand a little bit about Ayurvedic because I lived in India for a long time, but I'm not an expert in the field. So Ayurvedic style of eating is also learning the different
it's learning about your body, different
whether
types,
your body is hot or cold naturally,
yes,
or wet,
exactly,
or all of those things, and then eating accordingly to that. So again, it's a different regime, but
so it's something completely different than,
well, it's not completely different, because I believe a lot of Ayurvedic menu choices would also revolve around veganism and vegetarianism, but I wouldn't, you'll have to find somebody to speak on that, because that's not been it's something I'm a little aware of, but I'm not well versed or a specialist in that
that's okay,
area.
that's not a problem, just occurred my mind, is there any similarities?
And certainly where we've traveled around the world, it has definitely influenced the recipes and the styles of cooking. I now cook as a whole food, plant-based or vegan, and it's made me realize that every country naturally has many vegan recipes, partly out of culture, some out of necessity because of the finances that families have to feed themselves and their children. So actually meat and dairy, they were always around the whole world. They were luxury goods. They were something you had in years gone by, a very small amount of. It was only the very wealthy that could afford to eat those things. And generally, if you look back in history, it was the very wealthy that had all kinds of health issues of obesity and gout and diabetes and so on. And the poorer people, generally, as long as they were able to put some food into their stomach each day, they would have been eating more fresh vegetables and fresh things, maybe that they were growing themselves or were buying locally because they were cheap. So it's quite interesting that scientifically in surveys and statistics around the world, when you start to get interested in this and read books and articles, you find that, for example, naturally in Asia, before the advent of the standard American diet, and franchises and fast food and all of those first world, developed world produces coming in and products coming into those countries and the marketing, there wasn't obesity in those countries, and there wasn't cardiovascular disease, and there wasn't diabetes. But now there is a serious onset of all of those illnesses and diseases in those areas of the world. So you asked me, why we back up a bit. You asked me why we started this. Well, we're all, my husband and myself, we've always been interested in trying to be healthy and eat a healthy and nutritious diet. But culturally, we had been conditioned, we're all conditioned by our environment and by our cultural upbringing. And we had been conditioned to know that, well, for protein, you have to eat meat. And you have to get calcium, you've got to have dairy. We had been, in a way, you could say, brainwashed by our environment and our culture and our education system to tell us that these were the things we had to have. And we had also 100% bought into that, well, have I had any dairy today? I better have some yogurt, or I better have some cheese, or did I eat enough lean red meat, or did I have fish? And the truth is, we don't actually need any of those products in order to get our calcium and protein sources that our body needs to build itself, renew its cells, to function, to have optimal health and fitness.
Again, a lot of questions. You said that not only you, but your husband as well, if I understood, that he is a vegan. So I understand that your family joined you as well, or you started and then they joined slowly. What do you think about, oh my God, oh mom, you're going to change my diet? Or how do you adjust it?
What happened was, you mentioned when you were introducing me about me becoming quite seriously unwell one weekend in Albania. And I'd had digestion issues for a very long time, especially some of the countries we'd lived in, unfortunately, because of the environmental conditions and sometimes the hot weather or the water sources and things, or sheer density of population. We can very easily get unwell with digestive issues. And so many times I'd gone to see, over the years, seen gastroenterologists and had all sorts of investigations done. And it was always discerned and decided pretty muchly by each gastroenterologist I saw. Well, you've been living in India. Oh, well, you've been living in Africa. Oh, well, there was always this kind of, and I was very accepting of that, because really that was the environments I was living in. So it was kind of, I was always navigating and trying to find a way. And I'd pretty much worked out that my body didn't function very well if I had a lot of dairy. I just knew it would cause symptoms. So in certain situations, I'd try to avoid eating it. But then I was also aware, if I was at home, I better eat some, because otherwise, where am I getting my calcium from? And I'd tried different things, and I'd had different nutritionists give me different advice over many years in many different countries of, cut out this whole food group, or cut out that whole food group, or cut out wheat, or cut out gluten. And over the years, I'd listen and I'd weigh up their advice and decide to give it a try or follow it for a while. Or if it was working, well, maybe there was something in it. If it wasn't, maybe there wasn't. So what happened was, I had this sort of crisis weekend where I became very unwell. And without getting into all the gory details, I ended up having emergency surgery. And then the surgeon finding that the damage was pretty acute. So my gallbladder needed to come out, and that should just be quite a small sort of 20 to 40 minute keyhole procedure. But he couldn't get in. And he found that my whole abdominal cavity and all of my abdominal organs were fused together with adhesions. And adhesions can only occur usually from previous surgery or infection. So he was able to deduce that all of these episodes I'd been suffering for the last, 28 years had actually been gallbladder attacks, but nobody had picked up on that because I was considered too young. So it wasn't something they had profiled when I'd gone to them with symptoms. And add to that I'd said, well, I'm living in India or I'm living in Africa. They'd assumed all the other things that you would go for. So he deduced that my gallbladder had been messing me around for a very long time, and in fact had been leaking infectious matter into my abdominal cavity, and this had caused the adhesions. But each time I got very unwell and I'd end up in hospital and get pumped full of antibiotics on a drip, it would kind of, control it, and it would, I'd carry on until the next flare up. So he got to the root of the problem, which probably if it had been sorted out, 28 years ago, I wouldn't have had some of the experiences I've had. And so my gallbladder was removed, the adhesions were removed. It was, hallelujah, this is amazing. He took 3.5 hours to do the surgery, and, afterwards told me what had happened. And it was sort of, well, rest up, recuperate, and go away, and you can eat everything, but just reduce, fats and oils because you won't be able to digest them so well. So I happily, eventually came home. But I found I couldn't eat anything without being unwell. So this was not good. So back I trot to the medics, see the gastroenterologist, see the surgeon, and they say, oh, well, you can have this pain medicine and you can have these digestive enzymes, and before you eat, this is what you must do. And I pride myself really on not liking to take tablets and medication unless I have to and I'm really unwell. So I was just quite miserable as I came away. And then I read the bottle, as you do, because you think, I've got to take this. And the digestive enzymes were made with pig pancreas. And I was just like, I like really don't fancy this, But, I was pretty desperate. So for a couple of weeks, I was taking them and things sort of improved. But I was very miserable because who wants to take tablets every single time before they eat?
Exactly,
who wants to do that? And also, if it's made with pig pancreas, it's like,
doesn't even sound good.
Just no, I don't fancy this. Anyway, because I love to cook and love to watch recipe programs, by accident, and this was accident, I was flicking on Netflix and I watched the program that was on Netflix then. It's not on Netflix right now, so if anyone's listening and they want to go looking for it, they'll have to look on YouTube. But it's a program called Forks Over Knives. And I watched it, and I was kind of half watching it and probably messing around on my phone at the same time or something. I put it on for company, and then it started to capture my attention, and it was telling me that you can get protein from leafy green vegetables, and you can
that would be my next question. Where do you get the protein from?
And I was just like, what? Nobody's ever told me this. And I pride myself on being interested in nutrition, so what is this? I started to listen, and by the end of the program I just thought, well, this makes because all the science is laid out as well, and a lot of patients are interviewed about their episodes that they've had with cardiovascular incidents and how they've been able to turn them around. Athletes who, Olympians who have chosen to follow this whole food plant-based diet, and what they've done, all the blood tests and the measurements and all the science side of it. And I was just intrigued. So I thought, well, I'm going to try this for a couple of weeks. There's literally no harm. I'm going to do this for 2 weeks. So I went, there's the expression of going cold turkey, which is kind of funny, but you can use that for several things. So I went cold turkey, and I thought, right, I'm not going to have any meat, fish, dairy. I'm not going to take any oils. I'm just going to try this out and I'll see how I feel and I'll review it in a couple of weeks. Well, I felt great. And I was suddenly able to eat and my system started to work and I wasn't needing to take any medications. And I was sleeping better. I had more energy. And so at the end of the fortnight, my husband had been traveling. So, I had the freedom to really do whatever I wanted. And so I thought, oh, he's going to think I've gone a bit crazy, really, because he's used to very sort of British style of eating. Then he was of, meat and 2 veg type dinners. So I thought I'm going to have to explain to him because I'm sure he's going to be very concerned that I've done this. So we had a chat about it and I just said to him, I think the best thing you can do is, when you have time, watch that program. Mm-hmm. And then there's some others that I've now watched as well. And I've been doing some reading and make your own mind up. I said, I'm not going to impose this on you, but I want you to watch it so you can understand as to why I'm doing it, which I think is important. If you all live in the same household or you're in a marriage or a partnership, that if you're going to do something that's kind of swimming against the flow and doing something a bit different, you need the other people who live with you to understand why you're doing it so they can support you. So the next night he came home and I put the program on and he said, oh, do you mind watching it again? I said, no, I think I need to watch it many more times. So I'm totally happy. Well, he'd been traveling, he was jet lagged and he fell asleep after 20 minutes. So I was sort of, he wasn't interested. Just, oh, well, never mind.
I know.
Anyway, we, as a wife or as a husband, we can make these assumptions. And anyway, the next morning, my husband always brings me a peppermint tea or a rooibos tea in the morning. And he said something to the effect of, I'm going to do this thing. What are you talking about? I thought maybe he's talking about the office, work, something that he'd done on his travels. And then he said, no, the food thing. And I sort of sat up in bed and wide awake. And I was like, but you only watched like 20 minutes of the program. He said, I've seen enough.
He's a man, though they are wired differently. Come on.
Yeah. So he said, I've seen enough. And he was like, and I was like, well, hold on. It's a drastic decision. I feel you need more information. You need to watch when you're more awake at the weekend and blah, blah, blah. Watch some more, read some more. I don't think you should enter into it, and like anybody who's listening, who's interested, do your research. Don't just listen to me. This is my experience. It's do your research. There's a wealth of resources out there and I can share some of them. And so we said, okay, let's just do it for Lent because we're Christians and during the Lent period, the 40 days building up to Easter, we would normally fast from something, So I said, well, look, let's do it for Lent. That's a good time frame to see, try some recipes, try it out. And then, we can see how we're feeling. Well, it got to Easter Sunday and we just have continued. And this February the 11th, I will have been doing it for 2 years.
Wow.
And I haven't taken any more digestive enzymes. I'm not going to say that I've become superwoman. I've occasionally been unwell, occasionally all the things that are going around. I've avoided coronavirus. Apparently, I've chosen to be vaccinated. I've been sensible, but I do understand from following all the different social media groups I follow for whole food plant-based, many people who are whole food plant-based have avoided it. Or if they've had it quite mildly. So that whether that's attributed to their good health and their immune system working well and their cardiovascular system working well and their digestive system working well and all those things, I don't know because I'm not a trained scientist. But I find it quite curious that that's what the sort of the word on the street is. But yes, okay, I've had a cold or I've had a headache or occasionally I've, if I've spent too much time on my computer. So I'm not going to say it's a cure-all. However, time and time again, I'm reading and seeing people's personal testimonies whereby they used to be diabetic. They no longer are. They used to have high cholesterol. They don't. They used to have high blood pressure. They don't. So my husband and I actually didn't have any of those, no, but we do have a history of those kinds of illness in our families. So if we now know that there's a potential to help prevention, I'm a strong believer and always have been that prevention's better than cure. So why would we not choose to do it? So I'm not going to say we both would still, if we smell meat cooking, I mean, we're conditioned that smells good. But we've changed our view and our mindset and our
right.
we have a choice.
You made your choice, and that's it.
Yeah, we have a choice what we put into our bodies. So it's like if you had I'm not big on cars, but say you had some expensive, I don't know what would be an expensive car I can think of, like a Lamborghini or something, which I don't, and I don't desire to have that. But if you did, you're going to choose to put the best oil and the best fuel and the best products, because that's your very, very expensive car. Well, why would we treat our bodies any different? We have one body, and it from birth to when we say goodbye to this world, our body is undergoing an onslaught of environmental abuse and stress and pressures and all the things that happen to our bodies. Our bodies are amazing. So if we can do something to help our body stay in its best condition, then I think that's a sensible idea. And the science says that if we're filling our body with animal fats, animal milks and products, our body cannot assimilate or digest them. And, it just fills up our arteries, clogs up our system. And just like the Lamborghini, if it had rubbish oil put in it, it would all get clogged up, choked up, splutter, and come to a grinding halt. So that's kind of the gist of it, really, that we're trying to make sure our bodies work well. And yeah, we can you said, well, where do we get the calcium and protein from?
Yeah, exactly, the calcium. Protein. And I wanted to ask you what's the problem with eggs, for example? It's coming from the animal. I mean, it's not the animal. No, just for me to understand. And guys, if you have any questions in the meantime as you're watching, then just put them in the comments. And so
an egg,
I'm listening.
An egg is basically has got all the nutrition, cells and building blocks to become a baby chicken. Well,
it's not the baby chicken yet.
No, but it's everything in that structure of the egg could become a baby chicken.
Okay,
I don't need to become a baby chicken. I'm a human being, so I don't need the cells and structure and nutrition that's in an egg. The baby chick needs that, and I can get all of that nutrition from everything that the chicken would eat. So when people say, oh well, you need your protein, and if you have a nice lean steak or something, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite, because I spent much of my life eating those things and believing that too. But basically, what does a cow eat, Christina?
Yeah, well, it depends where the cow grows, because it's in my garden, and
so the average cow in the world, what does the average cow consume?
Yeah, I have no idea.
It consumes plants, plant-based, grass or straw. The same with
in the countryside, in my country, but other than that, I don't know what they feed them.
Well, of course. I mean, if you've got a cow that's being raised in a beautiful countryside in the farm, living an organic, nice life, chewing the cud of the grass. But because of the mass consumerism in most countries, the animals that end up in your supermarket or in your butchers and then on your plate are actually not farmed that way. And again, I had this very idealistic and romantic idea in my head of we grew up singing songs, old MacDonald had a farm, and all these things, and we have this idea that every single maybe lamb or cow or chicken or duck had this amazing life, and then they just happily sacrifice themselves for our plate. I know I'm being a bit
No, it's okay.
but of course that isn't the reality. The reality is there is mass, factory farming in order to sustain the consumption of the population, and it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for our planet.
No,
The
I
animals
completely agree.
the animals do suffer, even if they're farmed to all the highest stringent guidelines. So I think the other thing that happened when we started to follow this way of eating, we started to research, and as we began to watch Forks Over Knives, and then we watched What the Health, which is another great program to watch, and then we watched the Game Changers film, and that led to us watching Cowspiracy, and that led us to watching Seaspiracy, and that and as you know how it is, you watch these things, so then it says, because you watch this, you might like to see this, and then you read an article, and then you see who was the author, and then you think, well, let me look that up, and then you order yourself a book, and then you think, well, this is interesting, or you hear this interview or that interview, and suddenly it starts to become very easy because all the information is there. So I follow different people that I've heard speak or who were mentioned in those shows, and that's a great way for collecting new recipes and keep on learning.
True. What I'm saying is actually so that we are so much conditioned, but we do not have a food education. It's lack.
Yes, I mean we do.
Honestly, yeah, but
we do.
But
in some schools and countries,
let's say proper food education, we do not have. I mean, I'm not saying that we are uneducated, but we are not educated properly, or not.
Well, it depends on the system of education that you were educated in. So certainly, I was educated with the traditional food pyramid, and this is what you should have, and you need your proteins, and you need this, and you need these building blocks.
You have to you have to grow big and healthy, and
and you do need those building blocks, but you can choose what produce you get them from. So for example, calcium, most people in a developed world with a developed world food education and a developed world food marketing, will believe that calcium, they're needing milk, yogurt, cheese, because I did. But actually, listen to this list. So you can get your calcium from all green leafy veg. So broccoli, kale, collard greens, cabbages, okra. You can get your calcium from rice, sesame seeds, tahini, chia seeds, poppy seeds, celery seeds, rhubarb, endemi beans, lentils, almonds, amaranth. Then you can also get it from figs, fortified plant milks, fortified soya, and all of those forms of calcium. Not only do they have those small list of products that I've said, also present calcium to the human body in a highly absorbable plant source way. So the body actually is able to digest and absorb it. And all of those things, I'm sure that most people will agree, are also full of other trace minerals, nutrients, fiber, and all the good stuff that our body needs. They'll have potassium, iron, zinc, folate, magnesium. So it's just like you're getting more nutrition by eating those things throughout your week in various recipes and snacks and ways than you're ever going to get from a glass of milk.
Does it cost you more being a vegan than being?
No, not at all.
Because I'm telling you, I've been raised in Eastern Europe, where the food is plenty, a lot of meat and all the stuff. Of course, I bring that with me here as well, although much less meat, so we are trying to adjust. I'm still a meat eater. But when I'm telling to my mom or my parents, for example, older generation about veganism, about vegetarianism, oh no, we cannot afford that and stuff like that. that's hence my question. Does it cost more to eat healthy?
At all. So when we decided to go cold turkey, which meant we're not going to have anything from the animals at all, we gave all of the things in our fridge and freezer, which were dairy and meat, to people. We didn't throw them away. We did give them to, I don't like food waste either. That's a big thing with me. Yeah. I like to compost, and I like to use things up in soups and stews, and otherwise bless other people with things. So which is another big thing for the environment. But no, it doesn't, because if I went shopping and I'm going to buy meat and fish for the week, and I'm going to buy butter, and I'm going to buy cheese, and I'm going to buy yogurt and dairy, well, I'm not spending any of that money anymore. Yeah. I choose to, well, we already grew a lot of our food anyway before we became vegan, so that's another thing. And the house that we're presently living in Albania, we're really blessed because it has a beautiful garden.
And you said you grow your own food. This is what I want to ask
and we have
that.
numerous established fruit trees, so we are getting fruits in all seasons. And then I changed one area of the garden, it was grass, and I took the grass away, and we've been growing, lettuces, all different types of lettuce, rucola, radishes, tomatoes, aubergines.
So you learned to become a gardener, though.
Yeah, I mean, we'd always
not gardener. How you call it, gardener?
Yeah, a gardener. We'd always grown some of our own produce wherever we were in the world, but now we've increased that as well. So of course you save money because of that, and even the seeds. Somebody might say, "Oh, I can't afford the seeds." Well, I didn't even buy seeds. I took the seeds from things I was buying. So if I had a tasty red pepper, I thought, oh, this is a nice tasty red pepper, I'll save the seeds, or I'll save the seeds from this cucumber, or I'll save the seeds from this tomato, or this butternut squash. So I grew my own seed bank, and I grew my own passion fruits here. So wow. that was something I'm very excited about, from seeds, from a passion fruit. And we've had our first harvest this winter. But it's my favorite fruit in the world, and it's so full of vitamin C and all other goodies. But so that saves money. And then buying things seasoning. Now here in Albania, there isn't the very much vegan options, and there's very little. What a lot of vegans will look for is maybe substitute food. So at the moment it's Veganuary, which I know is one of the reasons why you wanted me to come on your talk show this month. And so during Veganuary around the world, a lot of people decide to try being vegans for a month, or maybe they might say, okay, we recognize the environmental impact, we're only going to have one meal a day that contains animal protein, or maybe we're going to we'll just be vegans on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something. So people are gradually reducing their animal consumption, or maybe instead of having milk, I'll take a soya vanilla milk in my coffee or something. So some people are gradually making the transition for their own health.
That I am a vegan. How do you say that? It means that I am a veganarian if I choose not to have meat a couple of days, and then
you might be a part-time vegan.
Part-time vegan.
So for example, my son and his partner, they choose to be vegan 9 times out of 10 for their breakfast and their lunch, and then they choose to have organic meat if they're going to take meat, and have a high quality product instead of eating cheap. And
now what organic meat?
So well, it's the way it's farmed, and certainly in the UK there's a method of putting codes. But I mean, ideally, from what I've learned now, I would say to everyone, please stop eating it. Reverse your potential of cardiovascular events, reduce your potential of being diabetic, reduce your potential of being morbidly obese, reduce all of those risks. But of course, everybody's different, and they approach things in different ways. So some people will do it gradually. My daughter spent some time with us, and during that period she was whole food, plant-based the whole time she was with us. So she does kind of 50-50 now in her own kitchen, and some of her baking that she does, she'll choose to make the cakes in the vegan way. Or so, different people are making choices. Certainly at the moment, when people come to our home to eat with us, they get to experience a vegan meal. So far we've had clean plates all around and happy full tummies, and people haven't been
That's
upset.
when you are at home. But what happens when you go out for dinner, for example, and you sit down and you've got the menu and you say, "Hi, I'm a vegan."
Well, you see, in some countries in the world, I mean, Israel has the highest proportion of vegans. The UK as well. A lot of restaurants, you'll probably started to see as people have come out of lockdown, they will have a vegan things on the menu, or vegetarian or pescatarian, and it will all be marked. But here in Albania, the concept hasn't really quite caught on yet. In some countries, it's a belief of a status of wealth that you can eat meat. So if you're choosing not to eat meat, they might think you're a bit poor.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's the case here, but it can be part of the mindset. But here, usually I can find my way around the menu, because in Albania, they eat a lot of fresh vegetables, salads, and fruits. So every restaurant or cafe I go to, they will have that on the premises. So usually I can look at the menu, and then sometimes I can just order some side dishes. Or I can ask them to make me a pasta arrabbiata, or I can ask them to make me a risotto, but please don't put any cream or cheese or butter. Just make it with the rice and some vegetables. I went for lunch today with, I belong to a book club, and all the ladies that were meeting to discuss the book we read, they know that I'm vegan. So the one that was organizing had already spoken to the restaurant. So I had, today for my lunch, I had a beautiful salad, lovely fresh salad with olives and red onions, tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuces. Then I had some nice toast with avocados and more delicious little cherry tomatoes and red onion on it. Then I had some stuffed vine leaves, and the vine leaves, of course, again, high in calcium, nutrition, and they were filled with rice and vegetables, and they were delicious. And then I had a risotto, which was made with vegetables. And then they brought me a beautiful platter of lots of sliced seasonal fruits. And I had a nice glass of water. And so I'm so full, I don't even know if I'm going to eat this evening. So I joined the table. I enjoyed everything. Of course, they also had I think they had some cheese and some fish and some things. But interestingly, they all joined me with the risotto. They had the same dish. They all then went on to have a creme caramel dessert or something. I had the fruits. But I came away having had a lovely lunch, enjoyed the company, knew that I had eaten good fuel for my body. And it really hadn't been an issue, But I do know in the UK, a lot of the menus are now being filled with a lot of meat substitutes. So there'll be a plant-based burger or sausages or this, that, or the other.
I went to ask about this.
Personally, I'm not such a fan, because I think then that food is still being often fried. It's often, going to be served in a white bun, or so it's not going to have the same nutritional value as maybe having like a black bean burrito or a nice cauliflower and potato curry with some dal. It's not going to have that is still processed food. However, that person is probably going to get more nutrition, and they're making less of an environmental impact by choosing the plant-based option. So it's kind of finding the balance and the happy medium. It's just like, even you were saying, I think last week when you were speaking with Eva, that sometimes
you can read my mind too.
You might have a junk food meal once in a while. So it's not going to do me a great deal of harm every once in a while if I go to where did I go? When I came back to England and I visited my daughter, I went to Wagamama's. And Wagamama's has, I think it's something like 70% of their menu now is vegan, or it might be 50 or something. So she'd booked us a table there, and I had their vegan fajitas, and it was beautifully presented and sizzling. But on the plate, you know, there was a lot of vegan processed cheese. There was a vegan processed sauce. There was, you know, there was some vegan processed seitan, which is made from wheat gluten. So some people wouldn't be able to tolerate that anyway. And it was delicious and it was lovely. But I wouldn't say that that would be a healthy dish to be eating regularly, because it's going to be high in fat and oil, which is some of the things I'm trying to avoid. So, but then at the same time, if someone's a healthy weight and a healthy person in their body, and they're going to have that once in a while as a treat, then enjoy yourself. You know,
Sure.
You can't live on lettuce. We're not rabbits.
Sure. And just came my mind is exactly when you mentioned Eva that I had last week. We've seen a discussion with Eva around eating about your blood type based on your blood type. My curiosity, because I'm Christina, is based on her findings, you know, different blood types. Some of them, they do not have to eat meat at all. So basically they are vegan, some of them vegetarians, but some blood types, carnivores, so meat eaters. What are your findings? So basically, if you are vegan only, is that good for any blood type, or you didn't have any research on that? I'm just really curious.
No, I think it's a very interesting question. I think I also have done some reading years ago about eating for the blood type, and you know, the concept that the human race have been migratory, and they've moved and they're working different land or living in different environments to where their ancestors were born. And they can trace the blood, for anyone who's listening, that, you know, they can trace the blood types through your ancestry, that we've all evolved from a certain place and point in time. So there's definitely some interest and merit to that. And the human body is highly adaptable. You know, you've got
people having flashing lights today in back of
I don't know. You're having a disco. And the human body is mightily adaptable. You know, people go through famines, wars, living in some of the most remote terrains on Earth, and the human find a way to survive. Obviously, you're sitting in London, I'm sitting in Albania. The supermarkets have got full shelves. There's an abundance of food. So we have an abundance of choice. And now, unfortunately, the human brain is wired to crave fats, sugars, salts.
Exactly.
And acids. And there's certain taste profiles, the umami, or these different taste profiles. And
okay, but that's because they put some things in it. So if you drink one, then
so we're naturally
they stimulate. So
we naturally will go for those foods, and it's part of, I guess, part of the physical remains of when we were hunter-gatherers. When if there's a famine, you know, you have to eat something maybe high fat or with a high energy glucose source to survive. But of course, very few people on the planet really statistically are living in those circumstances now. So we actually, and we're not as physically active. You know, if we go back a few generations, there were no cars, there were no this, there were no that. People would walk a lot more. They were much more physical work. They didn't have so many machines. And
that's true.
So we don't actually need as many calories. But our brain and our body, and sometimes, you know, our soul is caught up with wanting to eat those chocolate or those naughty things.
Do you eat chocolate?
Oh yes. You can get. I've always loved dark chocolate. I will choose most of the vegan chocolates a very high cocoa solid dark chocolate. So you only need a little bit. So for example, okay, my breakfast, 9 times out of 10 in the morning for breakfast, I will take, in the evening before I go to bed, I will put a cup of oats, measured out oats, with a tablespoon of chia seeds. So the chia seed is giving me the calcium and all the other trace minerals. The oats are giving me roughage. They're giving me, the fiber, the roughage, and also protein and all the trace minerals that are in oats. Then there'll be a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. So that's giving me my omega 3s. And then I'll put with that a cup and a half of water. and then something will go in there. Maybe it will be pear and cardamom, or maybe it will be a sliced banana, maybe it will be apple and some cinnamon and maybe a few raisins or some fresh berries. Every day it will be different, and that will get to sit overnight with the water, and in the morning all I have to do is cook it, and because it's soaked overnight, it cooks very quickly.
Oh wow.
And you know, if it's banana, I might add it in the morning. If it's some other fruit, it might add it in. So that starts my day, and I start with a full stomach that sustains me, because it's a slow burn, and all the nutrition I need to start the day. And it's actually very simple, you know. It's not complicated, and it's not expensive. It's a very inexpensive way to start the day. And that way I know that I've had my start with some calcium and some
Start your day.
Start the day with some protein, started the day well, and that will keep me going very happily until lunchtime.
Okay, fruit wise, you can eat anything. There is no, so anything which is fruit, vegetable, there are no things that you cannot.
I think that there's some things, obviously every single person knows their own body, and some people, I mean, sometimes people have a dislike for some childhood reason to something, or it might have been a fruit or vegetable that just they didn't grow up eating, so they can be a bit apprehensive to try it. Personally, because of living in all the places we've lived, I've had to change that mindset. I've had to learn to try new things, otherwise maybe I'll just go hungry. Exactly. So I've always loved fruits and vegetables and salads. And actually, since we started cooking this way, there were some things that maybe previously I wouldn't have chosen to eat. I think, let's say they didn't hurt me. I just didn't care for them. They weren't like, I wouldn't go running in the supermarket and go, oh, yummy Brussels sprouts. But now I've learned different ways to prepare them. And now I do.
That makes the difference.
When I see them now, I'm like, oh, yummy Brussels sprouts, you know. So it was just obviously the way they were presented to me by maybe the way my mother cooked them. They weren't very appetizing. So I think this is the other thing, that, you know, there are so many ways to prepare and cook different things. So sometimes it's good to keep trying different foods and get over that apprehension, and then realize that, oh well, actually it tastes really nice. Why did I not eat this before? It's trying to see something new and then buy it, take it home, look up on the internet, find some recipes, and give it a try, you know, and discover that. I mean, my husband, for years and years and years, all around the world, I've always eaten porridge. But I used to make it, I used to make it with milk. I didn't used to make it with how I make it now. And he never, ever had it. Since he's eating this way, he's fallen in love with having porridge for breakfast and all the different ways that we have it. And, you know, I think, you know, it's just like, be creative with your food. Be creative with what you eat. Don't buy the same things every week. Deliberately buy different things. So you asked me about the expense, and I would say we pushed out all the meat, pushed out all the dairy. And so when we first went shopping, some of the things did feel expensive, you know, because coconut oil.
That's why I was asking, actually,
because or hazelnuts, they are. But, you know, you might buy, when I go shopping now, I'll buy them by half a kilo or something, 250 grams. And so if you're buying, you know, 250 grams of cashew nuts, it seems expensive. But then you're not using them all up in one go. They're going to be in the jar on the shelf, you know, for a few weeks, and you're not spending money on, you know, all of those other things. So actually, the initial changeover of restocking the kitchen and buying the spices and some of the herbs that we hadn't bought before.
Yes, that's it. Spices, herbs. I was looking and I was like, oh my goodness, I have to buy this whole list because I don't have food.
But then you see, when I buy spices and herbs, if I'm buying dried spices and herbs, I'll buy them by 500 grams. Well, if you buy 500 grams of dried chopped chives, I mean, I kind of feel like I've got a lifetime supply. So some of those things that I bought 2 years ago, we're not even halfway through.
Wow.
You know? And then there's other herbs and spices that we've discovered. Well, we get through lots of cumin and lots of turmeric and lots of five spice and lots. So those ones I'll need to replenish more regularly because they're recipes that we enjoy. So yes, there is some expense, but it doesn't have to be expensive because, for example, last night's meal that I prepared, we've got plenty. I put some in the freezer as well, and it was made with potatoes, turnips, carrots, cabbage, onion, garlic. Well, none of those are really greatly expensive,
exactly.
even if you buy them from an expensive supermarket. And then in there were black beans, well, they're not expensive, tomato, a can of passata, and then herbs and spices. So that's a big pot of a sort of super stew soup type thing, which is very inexpensive, highly nutritious, highly filling, highly satisfying. And it's great because when I make something like that, there'll be some portions popped in individual little Pyrex pots with lids ready for lunches on a day when I don't want to cook, you know, or to go to the office for one of us, or so, you know. But at the same time, I could choose to make quite an elaborate recipe that's going to call for cashew nuts and coconut milk and slightly more.
You can make it sophisticated.
Yeah, so you can choose, and there's a system called the Daily Dozen, and anyone can look that up online. The Daily Dozen for vegans, and it will list the food groups that you should be hitting each day. You know, so some beans, berries, portions of different things. And if you follow that and you mix it up at each day to eat slightly different produce, then you're not going to miss out on any of your nutritional needs for your body. So it becomes quite easy. If you don't like cooking, it can be very simple.
What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, it's everyone's choice. Everything is a choice. We have hundreds of choices. We make hundreds of choices every day. So what do you choose for your health and your wealth and well-being? It's again your choice. So you can choose to be a meat eater, a vegan, or vegetarian. It's really your choice. I have one last question for you, and that I promise I'm aware of time. Do you feel more healthier and happier since you changed your diet?
Definitely. I feel that my skin, not that it was bad before, but sometimes I'd get outbreaks. It's healthy, it's clear, my energy levels are good, my digestion's good.
That's
I don't have to take any pig enzymes or anything like this. But I think also we've also changed other things in our home. So we were environmentally aware anyway, but now I make other choices. You know, when I'm shopping, I will choose plant-based, eco-friendly cleaning products. Before I used to look for eco-friendly, now I'm looking for plant-based, which you know that and to see if it has the vegan symbol on it, so it won't have been harm any animals. I will choose. I don't wear much makeup. Sometimes a little bit. I've got a little bit on today. I'll choose Bare Minerals, or I'm doing some advertising for them now. I'll choose Bare Minerals, or I'll choose Elf, or I'll choose Body Shop. And yeah, much more, even our clothes. So we still had some leather shoes or a leather handbag, and I'm not going to just throw those out because that would be wasteful, you know.
Exactly.
I will continue to use those products and things until they
wear out,
or until I have an opportunity to pass it to somebody else. And then, you know, there are other products. You can choose vegan footwear, you can choose vegan clothes, you can choose. There are, you know, it's quite easy in some countries and some places. In others it might be more difficult, you know. And you know, each person has to make their own choices. Some people will be super serious about well, not serious, that's the wrong word, but super intent on not taking anything from an animal, so they might not wear wool.
Oh really?
Yeah. Personally, I know from sheep farming, sheep, even if they're living in the wild, they need to be shorn. They need the wool taken off. Otherwise, the wool becomes too heavy.
I grew up in Transylvania.
Yeah. And if the sheep is not shorn and the sheep becomes broken away from the flock and from the shepherd, and the shepherd doesn't find the sheep in time for it to be shorn, the sheep will die from the weight of the wool, or get caught in brambles or things. So personally, if the sheep, but you can also choose where you get your wool from, or where you choose to get a jumper. You know, if you choose to buy your jumper from a village, let's say the Outer Hebrides, the Shetlands, or Transylvania or somewhere, then the chances are the sheep had quite a natural life and the wool needed to be shorn, and then it was spun naturally and used natural dyes and all of this, versus a mass-produced jumper where maybe the sheep are only being produced farmed for their wool. There's many different ways. It's like bees. So some vegans won't take honey.
Oh yeah, this is something I wanted to ask you about the honey.
Some vegans won't take honey because in mass industrial bee farming, the queen bees can be injured or killed, or the colony can be killed. But if I'm here in Albania and I'm out in a village and somebody are keeping bees, and the bees are bio bees, they're just in nature, and I personally, this is and other people may say other things about it, I personally feel if the honey is being farmed in that way, and some of the honey is being taken, but the bees are being cared for well, and the bees are happy, and the bees are not being killed or anything, then I'm still going to enjoy little honey. But I no longer would go and buy honey from a mass-produced supermarket brand name. I'm going to go to the small, independent, rural honeybees.
Wow.
and have some. But I also have changed my recipes, because I'll use maple syrup instead of honey, which
and I know, for example, that you veganize some of your recipes, right?
Yes, because I had so many recipes I'd been cooking all my life. So of course, they're kind of family traditional recipes, or my taste buds are treated. I will veganize recipes, or I will look for a recipe online that's already been veganized, and I'll just make it slightly different. Or I do some experimenting. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes I need to make it 2 or 3 times to keep tweaking it, and then I'm happy. And then I save the recipe, and next time I'll be able to make it again.
Oh wow!
But I think most recipes, can be veganized, and people would be really surprised that they can still have many of their favorites and enjoy. But if anybody's got a particular recipe, or they want to send me a message, they can follow me on Vegans of Albania, of course, on Instagram and Facebook, and there I'm posting some recipes and pictures of what we eat. If anybody's interested, they can find us there.
So guys, if you like and resonate with you, I'm sorry for interrupting, then you can find her on Facebook, absolutely. And you are brilliant and amazing, and I must say that I really, really admire you for making the choices you are making, and sticking with them. And regarding food, I made choices, but I can't stick with them. I mean, I can't.
Well, maybe I think it depends on your mindset and your motivation.
Exactly.
Yeah, it depends on your reason and your motivations. I had a big one in that I didn't want to eat those medications. And then the other thing I would say, I don't know who might be listening to this, or when you post on YouTube, is certainly I would say for people to speak to their own doctor. And if then, if you're not happy with the doctor that you're seeing, then find a nutritionist. Or there are also, you can find plant-based nutritionists and plant-based doctors now. And there are many doctors, many cardiovascular surgeons. When you talk to them, they don't eat meat themselves. They don't eat dairy, because they've seen what it does to people's arteries. So it's very easy. And these days, with the internet and Zoom, you can have consultations. You can read, you can do a lot of research about an individual person and find out their history and their books and their writings and their beliefs before you even contemplate a consultation. So I think those things are important, because everybody has their own medical needs, or their own genetic family I can't say that word now, pre-existing conditions, or the potential to have those conditions. So definitely not to, just like anything, if you're going to take up a particular new exercise form, it's good to check your blood pressure, check your physical capabilities before you do it. So just like anything, for everybody to do their own research, ask the right questions, weigh it up, give it consideration, and then decide for themselves.
That's the key word. Thank you for that. And I think we are going to close with this. Ask the right questions. No, really, that's very important. I've learned on hard way how to ask the right questions. But yes, I'm so grateful, Sue. Thank you so much for joining me today for this Truth Runners episode. It was really, really educative for me. I've learned a lot. I hope you guys too. If you resonate with Sue, then you can find her on Facebook and on Vegans of Albania. If you have any questions, if you are watching the replay, please just put them in the comments below, or just DM Sue directly, and I think she can answer to your questions.
Yes, and just to say, I'm fascinated by nutrition. I'm fascinated by cookery. I'm fascinated by growing food, but I'm very much, as we all are, in any pathway or any choices we make, I'm also still learning all of the time. And so I'm just sharing today from my own personal experience on this journey. And it's I don't see any reason presently why I would revert back to how I was eating before.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. No, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. See you guys next week. Until then, I'm sending you lots of love and light as always. Bye, guys.
Bye.